Okay, good morning, Patriots, or good afternoon, evening, depending on where you're at, what time of day it is. It's October 13th, 2021. I'm Jay Delancey, alias Oat Checker. And today we're one or two, okay, first off on Facebook, if you're watching this, it's backwards, and that enables me to see your comments. If you want to see it frontwards, and if you want to see the screenshots of things I'm showing you on the actual briefing that I'll be talking about on Facebook, visit our website a little later today, voterintegrityproject.com, and you'll see a link to the video of the desktop, if you will, of what I'll be talking about today, because it's all, granted, it's not the most sophisticated briefings in the world, but you'll get the information. And I'm stalling because I'm actually getting screen share to work, and boom, now we're sharing our screen that you folks on Facebook are not watching. So technical limitations that maybe one day I will actually have that straight. But for today, what I wanted to show you is some more fallout from what happened last week. As you'll recall, last week we had a fabulous day at the legislature where they finally woke up and, pardon the sexist term, but they manned up. They grew a spine, shall we say, and they, the Freedom Caucus stepped forward. A gentleman named Jeff, a representative named Jeff McNeely. If you're looking at the screen, you'll see the beginning of a video, and you can see that it's from an earlier broadcast. Oh, my bad. I wanted to do one thing first. Interrupt myself to do today's proverb. Today's the 13th, so we look at a proverb from chapter 13, Proverbs, and recommend you do the same every day. Today we're the 14th, we'll be looking at Proverbs 14, but today's the 13th, and 13:6 says, righteousness guards the man of integrity, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. And we have to lean on that. People are going, it's so corrupt. Oh, by the way, this is a homage to the to my armed forces buds. This is the Chaplain's Bible, the New International version that they put out in the military. I thought, what a great version to have. NIV is great. Righteousness guards the man of integrity, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. So what is that? How does that affect? Many people are discouraged. I heard a speech the other night. I heard a delivery the other night by Louis Sawicki, doing a great briefing showing kind of a deep dive on the kind of things that the Lindell Summit had brought forward. Only Lou was showing it more focused on North Carolina. And people told me after the meeting that they were just totally bummed. They just said, this is depressing. And that's not what they want to do. That's not really what we want to see. Is we don't want people to be depressed. It's not what I like to always end my briefings with is, so what do we do? And they were kind of short on that. So at one point they gave me the mic, and that was my advice was, okay, guys, this can be depressing, but here's what you do. Number one, you help these guys out, support them a little bit, maybe throw them some money, and Lou's like, no, we're doing this. But anyway, you can help out his group. Number two is contact your legislators and say, hey, you need to audit 2020. Hey, I'm serious, you need to audit 2020. And they're like, oh. And then number three is to join the Canvas teams. Go to NC Audit Force, or North Carolina Audit Force on Telegram. Look them up. I've shown their logo on our website. They are running, from what I could tell, they're doing a bang up job of the audit. They're even doing, they're doing some really good stuff. They're doing, first off, in order to be an auditor for them, this is a great idea. You have to pay a $25 fee, not to them. I'm not sure of what the fee is. I don't know what they're charging. I'm not into their chili bowl, but I will say that they're requiring a criminal background check. And I know at my church, it was $25, and they did a criminal background check on us before we could work around the children. So I imagine it's the same thing, but they're doing they're requiring their canvassers to have a criminal background check. And that's a great idea. They're really pushing for the integrity of the canvas. So they're saying all of our canvassers that were officially sanctioned by that group, not mine, but I'm not deploying canvassers. But we trained on canvassing, and they are doing their own training. They've done their, I mean, they've seen what we teach, and they're teaching their own brand of it. And it looks pretty good. I recommend you check it out. See for yourself. I warn you, it'll cost money because those criminal background checks do cost a little bit of money. It's a nuisance fee. It's anymore, it costs as much as a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Not really. I think they're not $25 yet. But anyway, so if you want to do something, yeah, call your legislature, say you need to fix this. And number two is get in there, pull your sleeves up, and do some of the work. And that work is do an audit, actually. Not an audit, do your own audit, what citizens can do, which is a canvas. Because at the end of the day, the canvassing information is critical. And this is something people don't get. You can say, do an audit, that'll prove something. No, all an audit does is it shows where the problems are. Now, I had one bless your heart lawmaker, I won't call him out. He goes, well, the results didn't change in Arizona. The Arizona audit didn't change the results. You know, if you're counting counterfeit money and you count it over and over again, you get the same total. What Arizona found, a minimum of 57,000 ballots that had no transmittal document. And that's big because in North Carolina, whether you vote on election day, vote by mail, or vote in early voting, you sign something when you vote. I wish that were true everywhere. I'm told that in Virginia, it's not so because Virginia's elections are more fraud friendly than than North Carolina's in that regard. Because you walk in, you give them your name and address, boom, you vote, you're done. You walk out and you go, I wonder if my vote counted. In Arizona, you have to sign something, and in doing their audit, they found 57,000 ballots that had no document signed with it. Now, had we done that in Durham County in 2016, we might have, who knows, we might have found 94,000 ballots with no transmittal document. Lest we forget what happened in Durham, then in 2016, the Durham dump, that was 4 years before the Biden bump. The Durham dump was instrumental in flipping the outcome of the 3 races in North Carolina that have subpoena power. Because it was a red wave election, Trump was winning the state, and looked like McCrory was cruising in to be reelected. Looked like the Attorney General, for the first time in modern history, really, for the first time since 1896. Oh, what's that? 110 years, I think. Or is it 120? Yeah, 1896 to 2016. For the first time in 120 years, North Carolinians were about to elect a Republican Attorney General. I find that interesting, that we never find a way, no matter how Republican we go, never find a way to elect a Republican Attorney General. Interesting fun fact. But 2016, that was about to happen. And also a really, really good dude, an retired FBI agent who I helped. I will humbly say that I trained him in how to investigate interstate double voting. He might take umbrage with that. I gave him my insight on how to do it, and because in my view, all these investigators are doing it wrong, and I explained to them why. Any of them that'll listen, we explained to them why. And they're looking at the wrong evidence. They're thinking like gumshoes, which is a very narrow way of thinking about investigation, which is why they're not uncovering conspiracies. I said the C word. I'm not going to unpack that today, but yeah. Conspiracies happen in elections. Get over it. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy. When you convict 63 people in one city of rigging an election, that's not a conspiracy theory. But we're not going to go there today. We'll cover that some other day. Today we're talking about Durham. Speaking of conspiracies in one city. No. Durham County, last week, Representative Jeff McNeely made me laugh. I was there, I filmed it, and I have the film on our website of the press conference. where they drew out of a hat all of the they drew one county. They said, we're going to look into the machines. We're going to dig into one county. And lo and behold, he goes in the hat. And while he's drawing out of the hat, I'm simply going, oh, Lord, please let it be Durham. Please let it be Durham. Please let it be Durham. I actually said it 3 times. Please let it be Durham. And then he drew out of the hat and he goes, Durham. And I started laughing. Nobody else in the room laughed, but I laughed. I laughed with joy. I laughed like Elizabeth did when she found out Mary was pregnant, or vice versa from the book of Luke. Anyway, it was a fun moment. He drew Durham, and after the press conference, I said, "Do you mind if I look in that hat?" And he said, "Sure." And he showed me the inside of the hat and took a picture of it. It's on our website at voterintegrityproject.com. It's got you'll see a picture. It's like a circle with a bunch of little tickets in it. Click on that link and you'll see the story. Is Durham's luck is running out. Let's see, Durham County's luck starting to run out. And we had the video on YouTube and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, it was a hat with a whole bunch of county with 100, presumably. I didn't count them, pull them out, and do an audit of the hat. I did a sample of it though. I looked inside of it, took a picture. You could clearly see there were other counties in there. So, what do we conclude? That he drew Durham County out of a hat of 100 counties. I've got 2 conclusions. If you got a third one, let me know what it is. Either God heard my prayers, saying, Lord, please let it be Durham. Please let it be Durham. Or Jeff McNeely is a magician. Or that is 3. Or Durham, just by Durham's luck, is starting to run out. He drew Durham. Okay, he drew Durham, said we're going over there, and if need be, we will bring law enforcement there, which is he said we'll bring the Capitol Police. I'm not going to quote him exactly, but I think that was kind of what he said he could do. And by the way, he can do that under North Carolina law. I'm going to do something dangerous. I didn't write it down, but it's NC General Statute 120-19.2 and 19.4. Hat tip to Carol Snow from Audit Force. She clued me in on that. And I'm glad to see somebody got it into the legislature's hands, because we'd been hearing that they had this authority to do that. They didn't need to vote. You know, the big excuse the rhinos were giving was, oh, we can't do this because we have to pass a bill. And Cooper vetoed the bill. So, like they were kind of almost too comfortable in that idea that since Cooper will veto it, we can't do anything. So there, Cooper said no, so we can't do it. No. I work with an old black man who's a good friend, and he says, there's more than one way to skin a cat. He's an old North Carolina guy from Bailey, North Carolina. And he said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Oh, the animal rights people would cringe at that, but he's right. And kudos to Keith Kidwell of the Freedom Caucus, and to Jeff McNeely and Larry Pittman, George Cleveland, and a cast of about 20 people. Some of them were patriots on that caucus. I'll leave it at that. They agreed to do this, and they're pushing to look into Durham. What's that going to result in? I don't know. What I'm asking you to do is, if you're a subject matter expert on this issue, we have some ideas of what we want to do, but we're not claiming to be the be-all, end-all. We're not that full of ourselves at Voter Integrity Project to say we have all the answers. So we've reached out to some surly people like the NC Audit Force, North Carolina Audit Force. They're not surly, I'm just kidding. I've reached out to Transparent Elections NC, a group, a little coven of engineers and scientists led by Lynn Bernstein. She is a Democrat, by the way. And Lynn has been, she's she set aside her career in aerospace engineering to raise her children. And being a Democrat, she woke up about 5 years ago, realizing that the whole Russia collusion thing could be true. And she started looking into machine fraud. And they started finding some things that are, that Republicans typically don't want. Oh, come on, Trump won, nothing happened. And that was kind of the attitude of the North Carolina legislature. Hey, Trump won. Sorry, Dan Forest didn't win. Too bad. But hey, we kept the majority. All's well, it ends well, right? Hey, come on now, let's move forward. Let's move forward. We got to win that veto-proof majority. When a lot of Trump backers, just like in Georgia, a lot of Trump backers are going, no, 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 no. We want to know what happened in November 2020. And thankfully, the Freedom Caucus has heard that. And part of what I heard today, and I'll tell you where in just a moment, I heard that they're getting a Democrat confess they're getting 10 to 20 calls a week on this. If they get 10 to 20 calls on anything down there, they pay attention. But when they're getting 10 to 20 calls a week, they circle the wagons. This is a big deal. So keep calling. If you want to get to the bottom of what happened in 2020, make them do their job. The legislature has that authority. And Jeff McNeely and Keith Kidwell and the Freedom Caucus have figured that out. They're using the subpoena powers that the legislature has. They can get anything they want, and if it push comes to shove, they can walk in there with the law and say, no, 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 you're giving it to us. Just like Arizona did. They had a rhino governor who opposed their audit. I can't think of his name at this moment, but Arizona governor didn't want to do it. And he was a rhino. He wasn't even a Democrat. He was a McCainiac. He was a McCain class rhino. And that's some nasty, hateful, vengeful rhinos. You know, there's certain types of rhinos. And that's a particularly virulent kind. And just because McCain's dead doesn't mean he's about as dead as Voldemort is. His spirit lives on. And so there are people like that. You have your Rovian class rhino. They're the Karl Roves of the world who proclaim that so-and-so is not electable, and then they do everything in their power to make sure that person doesn't get elected, even though the person's a Republican. So the Rovian class rhinos they would rather see a Democrat win than see someone they didn't approve, because they want to control everything. So the Rovian class is a different kind. But the McCain class, Ducey, or douchey is what somebody called him. Governor Steve, I think it's Steve, but don't quote me. That could be the Fox News guy. Governor Ducey in Arizona opposed it, but the committee, a judiciary committee headed by someone named Peterson, Senator Peterson said, no, we're going to do that. And the Senate president backed him up on it. Karen Fann, Senate President Fann, they call him president, and because the president of the Senate of North Carolina is also the lieutenant governor. So the real heat in the North Carolina Senate is Phil Berger, Senator pro tempore. So Berger could do this. Berger, at some point, to get the subpoena to bring the heat, is going to take a committee to vote it up to do the subpoena, and then depending on whether it's a joint committee, then it could be any of 4 people, like a joint House Senate committee. Then it could be either the number 1, number 2 of the Senate, or the number 1, number 2 of the House. So, and number 1 in the Senate is Markeith Robinson, Lieutenant Governor. His name will come up again here in a little while. Robinson, he could do this if a Senate committee did the subpoena, or if a joint committee did it, then any one of those 4 people could do it. As it stands right now, the Freedom Caucus, I don't believe they're a committee. I could be wrong. It could be a special ad hoc committee. I don't believe they are, and I reserve the right to be wrong on that. The point is, they have to have a committee to issue the subpoena, and then the provisions of NC General Statute 120-19.4 or 0.2. I get the two confused. 0.2, I think, says this is how you do it, and then 0.4 says this is what happens if they refuse to answer. So they have legal authority to walk in there with guys, very nice men with badges and flak vests and guns drawn and military grade weapons and all that. They can take the election equipment if they want to. It would make for interesting optics that I don't think they have the courage to do, because the Trump backers would be going, yeah, and the rest of the world will be going, that's in Durham, North Carolina, tut tut. Now, speaking of Durham, I don't mean to tease you with today's headline about Hissy Fit in Durham, but a representative from Durham County, the Right Honorable Zach Hawkins. I think I've got his page here. Democrat from Durham County, District 31. He rules, I guess, the Wake County side of Durham County, starting kind of Durham and heading south all the way to the Durham County line, and then heading that way. I'm confused. This Facebook is like I'm looking in a mirror. But heading off, if you're looking at the map, heading off to the right, heading east all the way to the Wake County line, it appears. And that's Zach Hawkins' district. He's been there 2 terms. He's a firebrand. I'm gonna have a picture of him on our website. Because he had a Facebook meeting. You can follow this on Facebook. Zach he did an interview. His Facebook page is Zach Hawkins. Excuse me. And he had oh crap. Pardon me. Okay, my screen did something funny. He spoke on October 9th at 11:36 a.m. He put a post up on his Facebook page. Very interesting post. There's a Choice FM radio station in Durham. I don't know the frequency, but there's a guy there named Mark Anthony. These folks are all black. It's a black station. I don't know. It's a black program. Mark Anthony's the host, and he had 2 black lawmakers on there on a show that day. Very interesting interview. I'd recommend you check it out because Zach, let me tell you what he said first off. The day, as soon as the drawing happened and Lucky Durham got picked, Zach took to the floor. And I'll have that link on our website. You can hear it. He took to the floor and got defensive about Durham County. It just cracks me up. Well, let's talk about Durham. Zach, do you really want to talk about Durham County? I would love to meet you somewhere and talk about it publicly. That is, I don't want you. I mean, he threatens violence. He's bad. Let me just read to you what he said. You are not welcome in Durham County, and if you try, it may not work out for you very well. It may not work out for you very well. Holy cow. Lindy's on. Hey, Lindy. We take our elections very seriously was something else he said. I said, do you really? Do you really? They talk about their integrity in elections. You know what? For somebody who's being honest about their elections, they sure are defensive when you want to look over their shoulder. I've noticed this all along with election observers. They don't want observers. They lie about how many observers can go. And they being the State Board of Elections. And when Kim Stratt was there, she identified as a Republican. No, she didn't. She identified as unaffiliated and voted Republican twice in her entire career. Oh, I know what it was. She was appointed by the governor at the time who identified as a Republican, a guy named Pat McCrory. He appointed her. And Kim got in there and rigged away through the administrative code process to cut the number of observers allowed in the precinct from a minimum of 9 down to 6. I would argue that you could have more, but she and then they also said at-large observers could never go in there as a pair, which is a misreading of the law, and we'll see about that. But they're always trying to tighten down anyone who can look over their shoulder and see exactly what's going on in there. So for people who are running a squeaky clean election, they sure do act funny. It's almost like for people who have nothing to hide, they sure seem to be hiding something. No, just saying. So brother Zach he went all Durham on him, is what Mark Anthony, the radio host Mark Anthony said. You went Durham on him. You went full Durham, not bull Durham, full Durham. And so again, he said, you are not welcome in Durham County, and if you try, it may not work out for you very well. Okay, is that a threat? I don't know how to view that. It looks like it might be a threat, but we'll see. Anyway, okay, that's on. You can hear all about it from Mark Anthony's perspective on October 9th on his Facebook page, October 9th at, well, I'm sorry, this is confusing. Okay, I think it's on I Love Choice FM. October 9th at 11 o'clock a.m. or on Zach Hawkins' page, October 9th, 11:36. It was a live stream they did on their page. And once I figure out how to do that, we'll be doing these. It was Zoom. They zoomed it in, and maybe it was live at the time. I got to get smarter on that. Anyone have pity on my soul and teach me more about Facebook, you're welcome. Let's get a hold of, you are welcome to do that. Okay, now, going over to how the other side responded. Jeff McNeely, the guy who drew the Durham out of a hat, drew Durham County. He's a representative, and I'm showing our people who are watching the later screenshot of it. It's Jeff McNeely's page. The guy loves bow ties. He's a Southern gentleman who likes to wear bow ties. He runs G&M Milling Company. He's the owner of it, and he studied at NC State. There's another reason I like Jeff McNeely. He's in Iredell County, and he did a take on this whole account, and it was on October 11th. Let's see where it was. Yeah, October 11th. He had a news talk, 105.9 FM and 100.7. They apparently he does a radio show once a week with them, and he showed it on Facebook. So if you want to see it, it's at his post on October 11th at 9:27 a.m. Okay, if you're not writing that down, I'll reference it on our website, voterintegrityproject.com. And the picture you'll see is a picture of Mr. B.A. Hawkins, being a B. His name is Zach Hawkins, but he was being a bad A, if you know what I mean. Let's see. See if I can find that picture. I got it in here. He's holding the shirt up that says Durham versus everybody. Okay. Let's talk about Durham. I already told you about the Durham dump. How many votes was it? 94,000 ballots that dumped onto the voter records at 11:45 p.m. on election night 2016. That flipped the outcome of the 3 elections in North Carolina that had subpoena power. I just want to clarify that earlier, talking about Chuck Stuber, the investigator, and I went down that rabbit trail too far. So the auditor, the attorney general, and the governor, they were all headed for Republican wins. It was the first time in 120 years North Carolina was going to elect a Republican attorney general, no matter how red wave the state goes. They just always got to have that Democrat attorney general. Something funny about that, just saying. And in 2016, it was no exception. But what it took was 94,000 ballots to be discovered to have not been counted. And so Durham, after all the other counties that put their results in and the winner was clear, Durham discovered 94,000 ballots, and it flipped the outcome of the election. Through all the legal hubbub that happened afterwards, instead of doing a manual recount of all of Durham, instead of doing an audit of all of Durham, the law didn't provide for that. And the McCrory team, if they really wanted to win, the McCrory team sued to get a hold of those 94,000. And that Durham delayed. And then by the time it was all done, yep, those 94,000 ballots, they counted them again, and there, it was over. Now, see, I think what might have been a better exercise would have been to get every ballot in Durham, not just the 94,000, because big whoop. Okay, you counted 94,000 ballots out of how many ballots cast in Durham. I should know the answer to that. I'd guesstimate probably 300,000, maybe 400,000, somewhere in that range. Somebody, you can look it up and tell me if you want to put that on Facebook, and I'll give you a shout out if I see it. So Durham, how many overall ballots they had in 2016? That's the question out there. But the 94,000 flipped the outcome of those 3 races, and that was it. The elections were over. McCrory was not the winner. Stuber was not the winner of state auditor, and Buck Newton was not the winner of the attorney general race. And Josh Stein was, because as much as North Carolina loved them some Donald Trump, and loved them Dan Forrest, who won by 300,000 votes against his opponent that day. As much as they loved those people, They just didn't trust that Buck Newton to be the attorney general. So they went back to Josh Stein, the Democrat. Okay, I'm beating that horse to death. I want to say it till you hear it in the middle of the night. You wake up in the middle of the night and go, wow, North Carolina has not elected a Republican attorney general in 120 years, or longer than that now. Since the Wilmington riots, North Carolina has never elected a Republican attorney general. The Jim Crow South might still be actually happening. Okay, but Durham, good old brother Durham versus everybody, Hawkins. Let's talk about Durham. Get out after that. I don't want to be here all day, nor do you want to be watching all day. There's a communism watcher of great renown. He's from New Zealand, in fact. His name is Trevor Loudon. Trevor recently came to North Carolina. We've been tracking his work for quite a while. He's I'm not going to label him, but he is probably the world's one of the greatest experts on tracking communism, particularly the kind of communism that can be thrown off Facebook. China, the Chinese communism. He runs a website. It's called trevorloudon.com. Imagine that. TrevorLoudon.com. And if you just Google the term Trevor Loudon, Durham County, you'll see what he wrote in 2019. It says how and why pro-China communists took over Durham, North Carolina. Huge implication for 2020. This is not a theory. This is how China does it. Pro-China communists from the Liberation Road group have insinuated their supporters and allies into several key positions in the city government of Durham, North Carolina. Liberation Road has been highly influential in flipping neighboring Virginia from a Republican to Democrat state. North Carolina is the next target. Liberation Road has a strategy of destroying the Republican Party base in the South, what it terms the New Confederacy, by using the minority voting base to flip county by county, state by state to the Democrats. If the communists can turn North Carolina blue, President Donald Trump will likely lose the 2020 election. This is written in October of 2019, so they're putting some context onto it. Now, Loudon talks about the North Carolina Maoists. That's the term, Mao, as in following Chairman Mao. It says since 1995, the Freedom Roads Socialist Organization, or FRSO, FRSO, can say that, FRSO has been the preeminent pro-China Communist Party in the country, absorbing cadre from several other Maoist groups along the way, including the Communist Workers' Party, a group called Line of March, and League of Revolutionary Struggle. In April this year, FRSO changed its name to Liberation Road, partially at least to sound fewer alarm bells as it proceeds to infiltrate the Democrat Party. In 1988, FRSO had fewer than 6 members in North Carolina, a white lawyer from Revolutionary Workers headquarters, and a handful of black comrades from the AMILCAR, Amilcar Cabral Paul Robeson Collective. I can't say that enough. Can't say it correctly. Amilcar Cabral Paul Robeson Collective. Through the 1990s, FRSO recruited more old Maoists and a new layer of university students from Durham, Raleigh, and Chapel Hill. They even recruited a couple of former Communist Party USA members in recent years, seem to have absorbed some cadre from the pro-Iran and North Korea Workers' World Party. In the 2000s, FRSO began sending comrades from California, Massachusetts, and New York to beef up the numbers, soon making the Maoists the most significant force on the left in the region. I think he means in the South. It says, this was part of a deliberate colonization of southern states, particularly Georgia, or Virginia, Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. FRSO targeted the South because of its high concentration of Black and Hispanic potential voters, which, coupled with a history of racial polarization, made for great revolutionary potential. See, that's how they do it. This whole critical theory now is critical race theory, but they find minority groups and they go at them and dig at them to say, hey, Whitey is evil. Don't you hate Whitey? Let me help. I know I'm white, but let me help you because I'm on your side. Whitey's bad. And they use their dark powers or Sith powers to manipulate these people into hating Whitey. Say, I know I'm white, but let me help you. And what they're doing is co-opting them for their leftist cause. And it's working a lot. Now, I digress. Let me go back to the reading here. It says, North Carolina, this is going back to the Trevor Loudon article from October of 2019. North Carolina, one of the most politically marginal Republican-held states in the South, was a prime target. Durham, with the largest concentration of Black voters in the state, became ground zero for the Maoists. FRSO or Frizzo supporters began to infiltrate Durham student unions, community groups, labor unions, churches, and local government. I'm going to skip to it. Later on, he wrote an article renamed names, and I thought he was going to do that here. Okay, here he does. I'm going to cut forward. He just talks about how that grew, and he says, to achieve its ends, Durham has infiltrated several existing organizations and has created others. Then he names the Durham People's Alliance. In the early 1970s, Durham activists affiliated with the communist New American movement formed two collectives, a health collective and a socialist feminist collective. In 1973, the health collective became the Durham Organizing Committee, or DOC. The DOC later split some members, entering a Marxist-Leninist collective that eventually became the Communist Workers' Party, and others forming the Durham People's Alliance. See, this is not some ancient history. This is Durham of recent history. This is Durham. This is the ground zero for the Maoists in North Carolina. And he says, since that time, the Durham People's Alliance has become a major force in local politics with the ability to raise money. A small army of door knockers and phone bankers, DPA's endorsement is widely sought by candidates on the left because these people, Durham People's Alliance, they've got grassroots. Think Liberty First Grassroots, this the very fine group run by a patriot named Sue Butcher. Look at them as the antidote to the Durham People's Alliance. And that's kind of what you get. The politicians on the left go to Durham People's Alliance because they're effective. They get things done. Question is, do they break the law? They're Maoists. So would a Maoist ever break the law? Just say it. Go back to the Durham dump. We'll see. Anyway, North Carolina Democrat Congress members David Price and G.K. Butterfield and former Senator Kay Hagan have all been endorsed and helped by the Durham People's Alliance 2,000 members, as have dozens of lower level politicians. Around 2014, the Frizzo, I'm not going to backward. Anyway, Frizzo cadre Aidan Graham joined the Durham People's Alliance board. In the same year, Durham People's Alliance helped elect Frizzo leader Sindolo Diamina, and I apologize if I'm getting your name wrong, sir or ma'am, Sindolo Diamina, a self-described Black queer communist, to the Durham School Board. Though he later resigned before finishing his term. So the Frizzo joined DPA to elect DPA to help the Durham People's Alliance elect the Frizzo leader, a Black queer communist. So they're going into the sexual side of it too, the critical theory, sexual critical theory. That's the Durham People's Alliance. Then Trevor Loudon looked at the Durham Association of Educators. Those are the people you hand your children over to for 12 years if you live in Durham County. These are the civil servants who would never politicize your child's education. Okay, the Durham Association of Educators. reading what Loudon has to say there. It says the Triangle area has experienced widespread education labor unrest in recent years, mainly because the Durham Education Association, or the DEA, local affiliated of the North Carolina Association of Educators and the National Education Association. Longtime Frizzo Liberation Road cadre Brian Profit is on the board of the NCAE and is president of the Durham Association of Educators. Longtime Frizzo Liberation Road cadre. So he's part of he identifies with the communist, with the Maoist organization, the FRSO, and changed their name later to Liberation Road to kind of tamp down the rough edges. Brian Profit was on the board of the NCAE and is president of the Durham Education Association. And yes, if you live in Durham, you're giving your children and grandchildren over to these extremists, which is why we need classroom parental volunteer assistance to get in there and watch what these communists are doing in your public school classroom or government school classroom, if you still believe in government schools. With an army of fired up leftist teachers on their roster ready to rally or door knock on command, the Durham Association of Educators has also become a major force in Durham left politics. So you've got 2,000 member Durham People's Alliance, and there's probably some bleed over from the Durham Association of Educators. That's a virulent force right there. Then there's this group called Durham for All, launched in early 2016. Durham for All grew out of a group of FRSO or Frizzo supporters who'd been working together for some years on local politics in Durham. 2014 and 15, members of the founding team began experimenting with building political power through local elections and led victories, quote, victories to elect young progressive people of color into local offices. So it wasn't just to get Black people in, it was to get people, progressive Black people in. So in other words, Black people they had brainwashed into joining their organization. So this is the battle in Durham between the God-hating, America-hating, filthy communists versus the Black people who should have more values with many of my Facebook friends, the ones who love the Lord and want to have a better future for their children. This is the fight, and that fight is going on right now in Durham over an election they had this last week. And keep an eye on Durham. There's a lot going on there. We shall see where it goes from here. I'm not going to share the video here, Don. Write me what you want and I'll comment on it. Someone asked to be in the video and I don't want to do that. I just don't think it's fair to let it be hijacked. So give me a written question or comment and I'll answer it, or maybe we can talk later. Sorry about that. Okay, those of you who are watching this backwards, if you joined us late, you're looking at the video of the stuff back here backwards. That means I can watch your comments. So that's why. So feel free to comment. And Dick's a real patriot. Thanks for joining in here. Okay, so at least I can see your comments this way. But if you want to see the things frontwards and see what I'm talking about, what I'm reading, you have to visit our website later today, voterintegrityproject.com, and you can see the briefing as I gave it and recorded it on my desktop. So Durham for All is the other group. You had so Durham for All. They work on says Durham for All is completely Liberation Road creation, counterpart to similar groups in Richmond for All and Memphis for All in Tennessee. Notice they go to the cities that have high concentration of Blacks. They co-opt the Black group and they run out the traditional value Blacks and they take it over with their virulent, hate-filled, the worst kind. They're communists and they're racist. I'm sorry, we can't call them racist because they're Black. They hate whitey and they're communists. But they run groups called Durham for All, Richmond for All, Memphis for All. That's code. Used to be just your traditional groups like the Southeast Wake County Association or Southeast Raleigh, I think it's called, or the Bladen Improvement. Now, granted, those groups have their fair share of hate whitey types. And certainly the Bladen Improvement Association does. I can't really speak to the Southeastern Raleigh, except that they're they were a civil rights group that formed out of the birth of the civil rights era. And my dad, a white guy, by the way, my dad was, he helped get John Winters elected as the first black councilman in Raleigh. The Klan didn't like that. They whooped my daddy's butt for it, changed his life, but be that as it may, there's a lot of racism in there. People they don't call it racism, but they just hate whitey. But the academics have said, well, that's not racism per se. Yeah, whatever. This is what happens when we send our kids to engineering school and the left sends their kids to English department. Be that as it may, Durham for all. This Trevor Loudon article, I could read on. It's a long article, and I'm not going to do it. Wouldn't want to go there. But Loudon goes to the proof, talked about who they elected and who their communist supporters are in Durham County. Durham, y'all got a mess. Y'all got a real mess over there. And next up from Liberation Road in Durham is they branch out with the Democrat Socialists of America, and they have branches in Charlotte, Durham, Greensboro, Raleigh, Chapelville, Asheville, Winston-Salem, and the Yadkin Valley. Okay. Interestingly enough, I believe Acorn was active in those same locales, except for maybe Yadkin Valley. I don't know about that. Liberation Road is affiliated with several Acorn-type voter registration organizations in the state, including Down Home NC, Ignite NC, and Blueprint North Carolina. And Loudon provides links to all this. Great article on Durham County. I will highlight that on our webpage and maybe put it on the Facebook thing too. I can do that too, just below this feed. Maybe somehow I'll make that happen. Oh, let's see. I think I'm gonna wrap up with Durham County and then give you a so what, where we go from here. Durham is a mess, and Durham had some real bad luck last week when Representative Jeff McNeely drew Durham out of a hat, and then Hissy Fit Hawkins, look at his funding and see if he even bothers to give us fundraising report. See how much money he got from these leftist groups in Durham. But Hissy Fit Hawkins did a broadcast on it, talking about it on his Facebook page. And we will we'll link to that page. I'll give you links to it on our website if you joined us late. But it's quite a fight. For the bottom line is Hawkins, he said he went to the House floor in North Carolina at the legislature and said, "You are not welcome in Durham County. And if you try, it may not work out for you well." Not sure if that was threatening violence, but I guarantee you the state board and the county boards of elections, or the Durham County board and the state board, they're already announced they're fighting tooth and nail. It's going to wind up in court, and the election officials will lose. But this is the part that makes me mad. They'll draw the clock out, and they'll get past the primary period. The primary filing period in early December is all that matters. The only thing, I like Jeff McNeely. Looks good in that bow tie. Looks great in that dogwood jacket. But the only thing they fear in that building is a primary challenger. You can go in there and call them every day and bug them, but unless you're willing to start filing paperwork for primary challenges, unless you're willing to do that, they're not afraid of you. If they can get past this primary period without having a lot of primary challengers, you could always file and then drop out later if they do the right thing. But I'd recommend you keep looking around for candidate committees. Start asking around. The way you do this, you call your friends, see how much money they'd give you if you got in the race. You don't form a committee, you just start collecting pledges from your friends. And the day you start your race, you announce it. And can't do that right now. Life is happening outside of this podcast. The day you announce is when you have to file your campaign committee, and you have to have a treasurer and all that stuff. They have to be trained. Start asking around. Note, you might not want to ask your party chair because they're not real happy about you wanting to primary an incumbent. But I'd say primary Democrats too. the only way to make sure the legislature does this audit, does it right, is to keep the heat on them. And the heat gets lifted in late December. The way they have this set, the way they've got the law written, the candidate filing period is early December to like maybe the 19th. So it's right before Christmas, when people are distracted, nobody's noticing, and oh, I forgot to file. And then you come up in January and you go, hey, you guys need to audit. Say, hey, you got to vote for me, or them old wascally Democrats are going to win. So then they'll play that game on you. I'm not saying I'm not, contrary to rumor, I'm not paid by the Chinese communists to, I shouldn't even deny that, but I just want to get it on the record. I know that some people have actually implied that out there in the rumor mill, because there's some rhinos who are trying to discredit yours truly. And that's one of the things they say. Just laugh at them. But the Chi-Coms would love to see the Democrats take over the legislature. I identify as unaffiliated. You can look at my voting record. Truth in advertising, I pulled a Democrat ballot once in a long, long time. And it was because it was in Wake County, and it was an election between the communists in Wake County and the garden variety conservative Democrats. And I'm sad to say the communists won, despite my efforts. The communists won in Wake County. Don't have the district county elections boundaries. Getting that from Don Yelton. I'm not sure how to address that. But the redistricting boundaries are not settled yet, so that's a whole other issue. Anyway, Durham was lost. I mean, Wake County is lost. Annie, the problem we've got across the state is nobody is looking over the shoulder of these election officials, and until we do, you can do it as an observer, and you can do it. What you can do, you can go become a canvasser right now through NC Audit for North Carolina Audit Force on Telegram. Reach out to them and apply to be one. That's step one. You can also apply to your county to be an employee to work in the elections. It'll be interesting to see how much intel they have. We know they have moles inside the audit force. They're spying on the audit force, and I'll have more about that later, maybe Friday. But they are a bad bunch, and then they need to be watched as employees. You can do that, and they also need to be watched as you can watch them as observers. So 3 ways to watch them: you can canvass, you can become an employee, or you can become an observer. So you can do, also help us out. Continue to harass your lawmakers to demand they get to the bottom of this, because they have statutory authority to do it. They can look at anything they want to. They paid for it with my money, and they can do that with your money too, by the way, if you pay taxes. So where do we go? Get in there and do these things. And I promised earlier, I mentioned Mark Keith Robinson here, because brother Hissy Fit Hawkins had I didn't watch what he had to say about Markeith Robinson, but on this broadcast he did. I'm going to drive up traffic to this dude's Facebook page. How sad! On his October 9th at 11:36 a.m., 1 hour interview with a guy who goes by the name Mark Anthony from Choice FM. I Love Choice FM was live, so on their page they had this interview with Natalie Murdoch, a North Carolina State Senator from the Durham area, and Assembly Representative Zach Hissy Fit Hawkins, who went to the floor to say that you are not welcome in Durham County, and if you try, it may not work out for you well. He threatened the Freedom Caucus, saying, my peeps are going to be there for you. I'm adding words to it. But anyway, he did an interview, and he also talked about Lieutenant Governor. This is from the webpage I Love Choice FM. It says he was going to discuss the controversy. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's recently reported homophobic rant will also be discussed. So they're calling it a homophobic rant. So that kind of tells you where they're coming from. So they're playing up to their base of the pro-China FRSO and the the radicals in Durham County when they use terms like homophobic. So they're playing up to that base. Homophobic implies fear, where Marquise Robinson just called out the behavior in biblical terms, which is there's no fear of what they do in the Bible. There's no fear at all. Just calls it out for what it is. Okay. All right. Set it. Okay. I think we're done. It's October 13th, 2021. I'm Jay Delancey, alias Vote Checker. By the way, you can find me on Telegram under Vote Checker. Please do, if you're on Telegram. Look up that fabulous canvassing group called North Carolina Audit Force. Check them out. And we'll have links to Jeff McNeely's Facebook page and to Zach Hissy Fit Hawkins Facebook page, where you can look at those videos I was telling you about earlier. So that's it. Oh, and the Trevor Loudon article. That'll be a lot of fun. You ought to read it. It's kind of alarming. Not fun at all, actually. But until we meet again, probably Friday. We're not going to be doing it tomorrow. I'm going to try and go to a sustainable pace on this, which is basically 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at around 10 o'clock. I try and hit it by 10 or start at 10, but sometimes it doesn't work. Anyway, till we meet again, more than likely it's Friday, Lord willing. I'll see you Friday. And that's it. Have a blessed day. And I'll remind you of the proverb one last time. Proverbs 13:6. Righteousness guards the man of integrity, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. So pursue righteousness and let God deal with the wicked. Who knows, maybe you will. Maybe you'll be the one to overturn the information that gets them thrown out. Pray for the Durham audit. Pray for the what's beginning to look like an audit of Durham County. And we just thank you for watching. You've endured this.